We have the return of Silver Surfer. We also have the return of She-Hulk. We got Spider-Man comics. We got Batman comics. We have all this and more on this week's episode of After the Pull. Hey, all my webheads out there, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And fans, I am your host, Mike Spider Slayer, always helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy. And today, guys, I'm bringing you another episode of After the Pull. That's right, guys. This is the video series where each and every week I take some of my most highly anticipated comic books and I give you a brief review and see if they're worth the pickup, if they're worth all that hype, right? And this week we got some great comic books to talk about. But before we jump into it, guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to MutantBeaverComics.com. That's right, guys. They have over 1,000 exclusive variant covers in their shop. So if you guys are into exclusive variants, guys, go ahead and check them out. They have some gorgeous ones in there. If you use my promo code CORNER10, you guys can save 10% off of your entire purchase and future purchases after that. So if you want those exclusive comics and you want top-notch customer service, worldwide shipping, and the great packaging that they offer, go on to MutantBeaverComics.com. Alright, guys, so let's kick off this week's episode of After the Pull. Is Devil's Reign, Villains for Hire. This is a Devil's Reign tie-in book, and before we do jump into it, guys, there are spoilers in these reviews, so if you have not read your comics, go ahead and read them. There may not be major spoilers at times, but you never know when I could slip one, so I'm just, giving you that warning. But let's talk about Devil's Reign's Villains for Hire, right? I was very excited about this book because I'm a fan of the Thunderbolts and I love some of the villains that were featured on the cover. So I was like, oh yeah, I want to give this one a try. And one of the characters that definitely attracted me to this book was Taskmaster, right? So when we open up the book and we check out the book's artwork, I don't think it's the best artwork for this title, but it was okay. It was all right at times. You can see that some of the characters, they look a little funky here on the screen that I'm showing you here. So, yeah, at times it was a little wonky, but, when you look at Taskmaster here, right? I mean, honestly, guys, he doesn't look half bad there. So, again, take it for leave it for what it's worth. But what did his book have to offer? Well, when I read it, it didn't offer that much. Like, it didn't blow me away, right? Until the last page. And when I got to the last page, it's like, dude, okay, now I'm kind of hooked on this. So in this issue, really what happens is you wind up seeing these bad guys infiltrate the Met Gala, right? And they're against rich people. It's like you could take all your millions of dollars and you can feed homeless families and stuff like that. And so they're out to kill the rich. And that's what happens. And so the Thunderbolts go out there and, kind of are very violent against these people and they basically kill them, and it's a very kind of gruesome comic book. And when the task is done, we get to see a dysfunction amongst the group, right? There is no real leader and they don't trust Fisk and they're all fighting amongst each other. And then what happens is Fisk actually does meet up with them eventually and says, hey, you guys gotta go after the leader of this group, and you see that happen. And by the time you get to the end of the book, you wind up seeing who is going to be the eventual leader of this team. And you're kind of like, okay, I'm on board now. So really, this first issue was a setup. And by the time you get to that last page, you're like, okay, now I know who's leading this team. Let's see where it goes from here. So after reading the first issue, I didn't think it was the greatest book, but it definitely has me going on to issue 2. So if you're willing to invest the money on this tie-in, let's say pick it up. Book number 2 that we're talking about today, webheads, is Silver Surfer Rebirth, issue 1. Now, I am so excited for this book just because it takes place during the time of the original 90s series. So when I heard that this book was coming out, I was like, yes, sign me up. I'm gonna buy every issue. I don't care how crappy this book is, because I love 90s Silver Surfer, right? And when you look at this book, obviously the artwork, it's all there. We can see that it is bright, vibrant colors, kind of like the old days of Silver Surfer, and that's what I could appreciate from it. And then there he is right there. So, and you get to see Captain Marvel's son in this book too, which is pretty awesome. So all the artwork was there. I even love the way Silver Surfer talked in this issue. He's like, "To me, my board," you know, it's just like, yeah. And the other cool thing about this is I love the cosmic energy flowing from all of our heroes. Like, you just get to see that a lot in this book, and that's what also brought me back to like the 90s series. So this definitely had 90 vibes all over it. So yeah, I can't get over it, man. I really enjoyed it. Book read really quickly though, and the plot's not going to really thicken until we get to the second issue. What was this story about? Where it was about Silver Surfer rescuing this Kree ship, and what happens is the son of Captain Marvel is there along by his side. And you get this back history of, you know, his son and where he came from and how he has to live up to his dad. And then all of a sudden you realize that reality has changed. And Silver Surfer now is actually doing battle alongside with his father, you know, the original Captain Marvel. And you're like, what? He's like, how can this be? You know? And then there was this Skrull invasion that was happening, and just, he is beside himself. But what happens at the end of the day is we wind up getting to see Captain Marvel basically die again, and we wind up seeing Thanos show up. Now, this book is basically about a character who is changing reality. So what does that mean? They actually have the Reality Stone. Who that character is, we don't know, and it's really no secret that Silver Surfer is going to be teaming up with Thanos in this series. So I found this book really intriguing. I'm looking forward to it. And if you were a fan of that 90s series, this is something that you're definitely going to want to pick up. Book number 3 that we're talking about promises to be the book that you'll never ever forget. You will remember this Spidey-Man story forever, right? It's not Peter Parker, it's Ben Reilly, the clone of Spider-Man. So maybe this is the Ben Reilly Spider-Man story that you'll never ever forget, right? So, all right, the Beyond storyline has been very weak. There's a couple of good issues here and there. Now, I'm not going to say that this is the best story I've ever read or the most memorable Spider-Man story I have ever read, but it is better, and it is going in a direction with the Ben Reilly character. Now, it might not be a direction that you'll agree with, but it's a direction, right? Here's the artwork in this book. So it's okay. It's nothing spectacular. There's really no action in this book. So you can't really compare, you know, like other books with a lot of action, but you get that creepy no-face stuff going on. And you get the kind of like what's going on, why these no-faces have been happening in his visions and whatnot. So in this issue, we find out that Ben Reilly has gotten wise to the Beyond Corporation based off of his interactions with Dr. Octopus. He gives Janine that drive, and he wants to sit down with the doctor and discuss things, and everything is in confidentiality, and Maxine Danger is not monitoring this. At least that's what you think. But in the comic book, you see that Danger is actually watching everything that they're discussing, which is definitely against the rules, right? Once too much was spilled out, or once they found out that Ben Reilly has become a liability for, say, the mind swiping process has begun, right? So they're basically erasing Ben Reilly's memories. Now, what we realized in the beginning of this, or earlier in this issue, is the reason why Ben Reilly joined the Beyond Corporation was to have a fresh new start. And they asked him, he requested to have his memories wiped in the beginning. So again, he would not be added baggage and could be the best possible hero for them. So he had consent in the beginning, but he doesn't remember that whole conversation or anything before. And now that things have been kind of unraveling with the Beyond Corporation, it's making him more of a liability towards that corporation. And again, that's why they are mind swiping him now. But by the time they get to the end of that process, at the end of this issue, it looks like that Ben Reilly is not going to have any memories at all, and he's not going to remember anything, and he's going to be a completely different person. That's what I got out of this issue. So this made for an interesting story and finally gave some kind of plot to this whole Beyond Corporation thing, at least with the character anyway. Where does it go from here? I don't know. We'll see. I know we're going to get that guy Goblin Queen very shortly, and then there's a couple issues in there that has, I think, nothing to do with Ben Reilly. So we'll see where it goes. This is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 86. Do I say pick it up? If you've been reading Beyond this far and you haven't dropped it yet, yeah, go ahead, pick it up. All right, so now it's time to talk about the other Ben Reilly story. That's right, guys. This is Ben Reilly Spider-Man Issue 1, The Humanity Agenda, Part 1 of 5. Now, this book was pretty awesome, right? I mean, this was very familiar. If you read Ben Reilly Spider-Man back in the 90s, it definitely had those 90 vibes to it. And even though you kind of read this story a little bit before, with Ben Reilly's psyche about who he is, what if he is the clone. It just seemed like you wanted to know more about Ben Reilly Spider-Man. Now, the artwork in this book was actually pretty good. I enjoyed the colors of it. It was a little bit of a darker toned book, which I can totally understand that because this is a different Spider-Man. This is not the so lighthearted Spider-Man. And again, I love the action in this book. There wasn't a ton, but this was quite the story. You paid $4 for this book, which wasn't overpriced, but you got a meaty story. You know, it's like we wound up taking the time to write a solid book. We did a great job at reintroducing Ben Reilly if you're not really familiar with him for new readers, and it got you vested or revested into this character to, again, learn about his psyche. And we had a little bit of a mystery going on with this guy that killed this female that was, supposedly on an online dating site, and he's kind of a mysterious character, not sure who he is. And at the end of the day, you wind up seeing Ben Reilly come face to face with the Scorpion. I don't know, I didn't see that coming, but it was actually kind of cool. So if you have not read very much Ben Reilly and want to know more about the character and how he thinks, this is definitely a book for you. I definitely say go out here and buy this one. All right, guys, moving on to book 5. I think we're at this point, we're talking about Hulk issue 3. Now, the story is starting to take shape here a little bit. First couple issues, it's kind of like Hulk's doing some dimensional jumping, and then he comes into like Bruce Banner from an alternate universe. That was the last page of the last issue, and then you're kind of like, okay, well, things are gonna get a little bit interesting. Ryan Ottley's artwork, I like it. I really enjoy it for this series. His characters are great. You get to see some other Hulk-like creatures in this book. Hopefully, maybe like I can find it in here. Let's see. Like, you get to see this dark, menacing Hulk, and you're kind of like, what is this guy? Is this a new one in here? And then you wind up getting to see some alternate version Hulks on this page right here. So that was pretty cool too. So I love Ryan Ottley's artwork on here. So what is this book about? Well, in this issue, you get to learn about this alternate reality of a Hulk, of Bruce Banner. And he is the one that created the Gamma Bomb, and it worked. However, they're using it as a weapon, and what happens is it wound up destroying all of the world, and everyone has been basically been mutated into Hulks, and this Bruce Banner has to capture these Hulks and get rid of these Hulks. Now, he was trying to find a Hulk from a different universe to see if he can save them, which was an interesting little twist there, right? And you wind up finding out who is the president of this alternate Earth, and you're like, oh, dude, it totally makes sense, right? And you also get introduced to kind of what happened a little bit in El Paso, Texas, on why the Hulk decided to leave to begin with. And it seemed pretty dark, and I really enjoyed it, and I find myself intrigued. Now, the one thing about the Hulk is it is a quick read. Some of Donny Cates's books tend to be a little more dialogue heavy. This one has a pretty good balance, and I enjoy it. And what I really like about this, again, is Ryan Ottley's visuals, and it gets me attracted to see those fight scenes or those grotesque scenes or whatever happens in that book. But I'm enjoying this one, and I definitely say pick this up. And if you feel like you're on the fence about it because it was off to a slow start, give it a shot. I think it's going to be a good book. Book number 6 is a book that I have been waiting to come back since the original Sensational She-Hulk, and this is She-Hulk issue 1. Jennifer Walters has just recently returned back to form based off of what happened in the Avengers issue, and I couldn't be happier. She showed up in the Fantastic Four briefly in a court case with the Fantastic Four family, and that was enjoyable, but now she gets her own book, right? We wound up getting Rainbow Rowell and Roj Antonio, who does the artwork. And I like this book, even though obviously it's not like, 1980s or early 90s She-Hulk, but nevertheless, the art does feel a little bit familiar with the facial expressions and the writing in here. She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, is definitely very much in character, and it's a very light-hearted book. I really enjoyed this book. It definitely... I wouldn't say it exceeded my expectations. It definitely met my expectations. This is something that I completely expected from a She-Hulk book, and it delivered. So in this issue, you wind up seeing Jen. She's kind of down on her luck, right? And she's just trying to get her life back together because she was stupid She-Hulk for the longest time. She basically lost everything that she, acquired when she was Jennifer Walters earlier, turning outlaw and whatnot. And she comes across Titania, and Titania is just like, I don't know what to do with myself, but I feel better when I beat people up. So her and She-Hulk beat each other up, and then they come to this agreement. They're like, you know what? As long as you're not breaking the law, Titania, and you need to get some steam out, and I need some physical therapy myself, maybe we should just meet up at a gym or fight or do some kind of fight club. And they're like, cool, man. And that's awesome. And also what happens in this book is that you wind up seeing Jen meet up with Janet Van Dyne, and she used to stay at her place, back in the day, and she had all her things there. So things are kind of looking up for her. She gets this job as an attorney or as a partner in this law firm. And it was kind of cool trying to see Jennifer Walters land on her feet again. I really enjoyed the book. There was some really funny moments where it was like Jen was fighting Titania and she didn't want to rip her clothes when she transformed, so she took off her clothes so she could fight. It's awesome. That is Jennifer Walters right there. And when you get to the end of this comic book, all of a sudden this character comes out of nowhere, and that's basically how our story sets up. So if you were a fan of Sensational She-Hulk back in the day, and you love the character, I think you're going to enjoy this issue. It definitely, brightens up your day just a little bit because, Jennifer Walters is pretty kick-ass, right? So, yeah, check it out, guys. This is She-Hulk issue 1. All right, guys, book number 7 that we're talking about today is Nightwing issue 88. And guys, it definitely returns. You know, it's done with all that fear state crap, and it's getting back on track with the storyline, and I really appreciated this book. The artwork was actually really cool, and if you're a Teen Titans fan, you're going to enjoy this book, and I loved it because it's got all your favorite Teen Titan characters like Beast Boy and Starfire. You know, it's got Donna Troy in there, and it was kind of cool that they all teamed up together, and Tom Taylor did some fan service in this book. I really enjoyed it, and you wind up getting to see a new costume on Dick Grayson. Now, it's not a drastic change, but it is a new costume, so he can kind of wear it wherever he goes, right? Because now that his identity is known and that he is actually Nightwing, he has to protect himself at all times. So I thought it was a really good issue. Basically, what happens is there's an Alfred Pennyworth Day where he's building all these homes for homeless kids, and he is going to be assassinated. There's multiple people after him, and that's where our Teen Titans came into play to save the day. And it was kind of cool, again, seeing all the Teen Titans interact with each other, interact with Nightwing, and great action sequences, stellar artwork in this book. And at the end of it, you wind up getting to see the return of the villain known as Heartless. So I am really excited once again for Nightwing. Like I said, the book is back on track. You guys that have been reading Nightwing, I'm sure, are enjoying it as well. If you haven't read it yet, man, you're missing out because this is a special book. Book number 8 that we're discussing today goes to Batman the Knight. This is issue 1. My God, guys, I really like this book. Written by Chip Zdarsky. This is like a Batman Begins type of story where we get to see Bruce Wayne, a young Bruce Wayne, before he becomes Batman. And I haven't read as much Batman as a lot of you others out there. So for me, this book might be higher than a lot of people's books this week. But I really enjoyed this story as we get to see a young Batman who's slowly becoming Batman, right? We get to see him have therapy sessions with Hugo Strange. He was dating a girl by the name of Dana, and he kind of pieces it together that all these psycho, therapy sessions that he's been having with Hugo Strange is a complete ripoff, and he solved this case to kind of put Hugo Strange in jail. I thought it was kind of cool, man. I really enjoyed it. The artwork was pretty neat as well. I liked it. It had very dark tones to it. And it was cool seeing, again, Bruce Wayne come into his own, right? Realizing that he doesn't have to go to school, that he just wants to kind of learn on his own, and he wants to figure out how to help people, right? But he doesn't know how to quite do it yet. In this book, he mentions I want to become a cop. And Dana goes to him, well, you're better than that, right? And he's like, yeah, but I want to carry a gun. And so he realizes that he wants to be a hero of Gotham, stay at Gotham and help the city, but he doesn't know how to quite do it yet. And Alfred is kind of beside himself because he doesn't know how to take care of this young Bruce Wayne. He feels like he's lost in this pit of violence, right? So it was really cool to see this kind of like this transitional period happen between Bruce Wayne and Batman. So I am looking forward to the next 9 issues of this. Guys, let me know in the comments below what you think of this Batman book. Is this something that you've read before? Are you kind of bored by it? Or were you intrigued of this version of a young Bruce Wayne becoming the Batman that we all know and love today? So there you have it, webheads. There are some of my most highly anticipated books that I read so far this week. And let me just tell you, all these books were pretty darn good this week. Do I have a favorite up to this point? I couldn't tell you, man. It's a crapshoot. I really loved SheHulk. I really loved Nightwing. There were so many great books. I'm going to have to make my decision later on in the week. So, guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell. And, of course, guys, I'll leave you more content right here to click on. If you missed my comic book day haul, click on it. You're going to see what I picked up. And of course, guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting, and most importantly, keep reading those comics. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you real soon. Bye.